Deborah Heiser. What do you know about being a mentor? What do you know about being a mentee? This is what Deborah does. She has a great TEDx where she talks about mentoring. She opens up the TEDx, of course, with a phrase that I've never heard of: being an aging specialist. Do you know what that is? She talks about her grandmother and some of the problems she had. She wanted to be a grandmother fixer in college. She changed her degree and changed her direction, and then wrote a great book on all this research that she did. And then, somebody said, well, how are you going to help us? We see what's happening here. And so she discovered mentoring. I shouldn't say she's discovered it, but she sort of dove deep into it. And now she has the mentorproject.org, which is a place where mentors can go and mentees can go. What's the difference between the two? Are there rules needed to be a mentor? The answer is yes, there's 5. And I'll just give you the first one. And that's, of course, you have to have something to give to be a mentor. I found out that I'm an eternal mentee, and just being an eternal learner and wanting to learn all the time and being curious. Perhaps the main reason why I have this very podcast is why I'm an eternal mentee. But she's fascinating and really smart, really engaging, and just broke down what's a lateral mentor. Just breaks down exactly what it is and continues to do it. She sent a person out to Tanzania who did a painting and a school, and she goes into that story as well. But it's just really understanding what mentorship is about. Thanks for listening, watching. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because I was working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Interesting, Deborah Heiser. Thank you so much for your time. I'm very excited to talk to you. So what's the difference between a mentor and a coach? And secondly, why is a mentor like a brownie?
So here's the deal. A mentor is someone who's never paid, right? So if you're paid, you're not a mentor. There are 5 things that make up a mentor. And the first thing is that the mentor has to be someone who wants to give something to someone. And they have an expertise, a value, a culture, something that they want to give to someone else. There has to be someone who wants that. So that has to be matched up. The second thing is that it has to be an intrinsically motivated, exchange of information. So this is where the pay comes in. If someone is at work and it's part of their job description, that's not mentoring. It has to be that they actually want to do it. And here, I'll give you an example of that. If I were to say, hey, would you like to go volunteer your time at a soup kitchen, giving out food and beverage to hungry, thirsty people? You might say, you know what? That makes me feel so good to do that. I'd love to. I'm going to go do that. If you're driving and you're on your way there and I call you and I say, hey, take a left and just go volunteer your time at Starbucks. That feels different. Same activity, giving out food and beverage to hungry, thirsty people, but it feels very different. And that's the difference when you add the pay component or an extrinsic motivator. You have to have a meaningful connection with the person. So if it's something like, somebody's like, yeah, well, I have to meet with this person once a week. And I don't really like them, but I feel like I don't want to tell anybody that because it'll feel like a failure if I don't meet with them. That is not mentorship. That is just an uncomfortable relationship that you have. There also has to be trust. So if I were to say to you, hey, I want to tell you all of my vulnerabilities that I don't know so that you can help me out. But then I worry that you're going to go tell everybody. or that you won't give me a pay raise, or that, the neighbors will find out, if it's not a work
Mm.
related thing or something like that. I'm not going to trust you. Likewise, if you say, "Hey, I'm not going to tell Debbie anything. She's going to go take my ideas and run and start her own business, or she'll run and use that in some way." So trust is a
Hmm.
big component. And finally, you have to have a goal, and that can be a one-off. It could be, "Hey, can you show me a little something about podcasting? I'd love to learn the basics." And then I'm done. Or it could be something that starts out small and continues, and that goal shifts and changes over time. But there needs to be a goal. Otherwise, it's just chit chatting. Now, coaching is a goal that is for the company or for an organization or for something else. It doesn't always have to be a paid thing, but the goal is not an emotional goal between the two people. And
Mm.
mentoring is an emotional um, interaction. It's emotion based. So if I have a coach for a team for say to play soccer, they're going to have the goal to win. The goal isn't a personal goal for me.
Mm.
If I have a coach at work, that coach is trying to make my work better for my work. They're not creating a legacy for me. So the two are very different. Now, a lot of people will say to me, "I'm a coach and a mentor." And I say, "No, you're a good coach." Or "I'm a
Mm.
leader and a mentor." No, 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 you're a good leader. It's like saying, "I love my children." You're supposed to. That is part of your job as a parent, is to love your children. You don't get an extra medal for that. So a lot of people will say that they add the mentoring component to whatever they're doing, because they'll say, "Well, I care about the person," or "I really do want to pass something on," but they don't have all five components there.
Hmm.
So if you're looking at mentorship versus coaching, mentoring, you should have a lot of them. You
Mm.
should have them everywhere in your life for everything you can possibly have, where you're either the mentor or someone else is the mentor. And coaching, you want to have one, because it would be pretty messy if you had five coaches
Hmm.
helping you. So I hope that's helpful to determine the difference between those two. And how brownies fits in it
Yes.
is that I gave you the five components of mentoring. If you leave one of those components out, it's like leaving a component of brownies out.
I
So if
see.
I baked brownies without the sugar, it would look like brownies, but it wouldn't taste like it.
No.
And that's what happens all the time with mentoring, is that it'll look like it in some capacity, but it's not really mentoring.
Hmm. So one of your components is you have something to give. How do you know when you have something to give?
It's something that we do automatically. You're podcasting. What made you decide I have something to give?
Hmm.
You just did it. Like, I don't know actually your real reason, but this is what everybody does. They'll say, "I have accumulated enough information in my life. I want to give it back somehow."
Hmm.
And we have a lot of different avenues that we do that. So just think about it. Think about every holiday tradition you have. If you go into a family tradition that you have, a holiday, that person didn't make that up on the fly that
Mm.
moment. You
Mm.
walk in and there's usually stuff that you remember from the past. It's something comfortable. That is something that we pass down. We do that intuitively. We don't come in and say, "Let me make sure that I'm doing something that continues this legacy." That's religion. Nobody goes in and says, "I must pass on XYZ." There's a script or a structure to it. Religion has been around for centuries, whatever one you subscribe to. And that is mentorship that's being passed down. So everyone has something to give. Everyone has an expertise in something, whether it's work related or it's culture and values and traditions. So we automatically kick into gear to give this back,
Hmm.
because we want to. We think it's important. It makes us feel like we have a bigger footprint, and makes us feel like we're living on in other people. And our memory goes on in many ways. So that's how that fits in together.
In this fast-paced MSP landscape, how do you stay ahead? Introducing MSPinfluencer.com, your ultimate hub for MSP news, insights, and community connection powered by Forza Dash. More than 75,000 MSPs subscribe to our MSP Influencer Pulse weekly newsletter, staying informed and ahead of industry trends. Tune in to emerging podcasts from Joey Pinz and leading MSP voices, offering essential tips, powerful insights, and success stories. Explore our multi-authored blogs, crafted specifically for MSP leaders, delivering fresh perspectives and actionable strategies. Celebrate excellence with the industry-leading Forza MSP Influencer Awards, recognizing innovation, leadership, and impact in the MSP community. Join thousands of MSP professionals who trust MSPinfluencer.com to grow their business and expand their networks. MSPinfluencer.com, where today's MSP leaders connect, collaborate, and conquer, all powered by the Forza platform, helping MSP vendors work effectively with MSPs and helping MSPs grow. And there's no body that can determine if one qualifies as a mentor. It's purely a personal thing, and correct?
It's mentor driven. If you feel you have something to give, that's the qualifier.
I say.
So you could have said, I have information. I want to get things out to people. I want to do a podcast. Podcasting is a modern form of mentorship. It's a way of giving out expertise to others that wouldn't have been there otherwise. Imagine all the podcasts that you might listen to and get information from. If you didn't have those, you wouldn't have that expertise given out. So it's the mentorship is driven by the mentor, not the mentee. We've been sort of fed this information. It was the concept was hijacked by like corporate America, where it was like, get a mentor, get ahead. So we see this vision of somebody, reaching out to somebody to give them information, but that person is a nameless, faceless individual. In reality, the mentor is the driving force. They're the apple tree full of apples, ready to give those apples away. And we know that the mentee, whoever gets it, will find value in that if they're looking for that. But we've got it backwards. It's really mentor driven.
But nobody can say to somebody who wants to mentor, look, you can't be a mentor. You don't know this.
No. I mean, look, you could say, no, absolutely not, because mentoring is an emotional. We think of mentoring as transactional, like I am going to give you a bit of knowledge and you are going to take that. But here you are podcasting. How do you know which thing will resonate with people? Maybe they will resonate with one component. That might not even be what you intended, but you have a big, wide umbrella filled with knowledge, and somebody's going to be listening and they'll say, this is what I want. Maybe you didn't even think of that. So we really need to think of mentorship as an emotional interaction that we're having, where people are giving and getting what they want.
As I get older, Debbie, I find I have more questions than answers. So so it's just the constant learning, and when I stop learning, I die. So I just love that. I don't sit back and think, well, what could I offer to mentorship? Perhaps just that attitude of having questions. I'm not sure. So I mean, well, I guess there's two parts, because what good is it if you want to be a mentor and there's nobody who's going to want to take it? So if you think you have something or you're not sure if you do, how do you find somebody? I guess this is where your project comes along, isn't it?
Yeah, so there are lots of ways. And this is why we started, because a lot of the people I talked to were world changers. People who'd done things that made the world different. Like one of them was considered the father of the network firewall. He wrote the first book on internet securities.
Oh.
And he was saying, I'm going to retire from Bell Labs and I don't have anyone to mentor. I can't go to a park and say, hey, kid, do you want to mentor? Now, this was before COVID, and we had all of these opportunities online that opened up to people. But so we started out to get Bill and a few others in schools. And people thought, gee, no one is ever going to want to do this. Why would anyone want to give their time, especially if you're somebody who's done amazing things in the world? And it turned out that we went from 10 people to 60 to 80 to 100 within a year.
Wow.
Of people who came and said, I'd like to mentor. Now,
Hmm.
The problem was they weren't finding mentees. This is pre-COVID and then in the very beginning of COVID. But now people can give back. What we found was there was an explosion in the ability to give back because of the internet. We're in 7 countries and we're able to give back globally because of Zoom. Prior to COVID, we just had Skype and that not everybody had that. And it was clunky to meet with people. More people met in person, which meant that we were more of a community based way of thinking about things. Um, but now you can give back by podcasting. You can give back by blogging. You can, and those people who are your listeners are your mentees.
Hmm.
They are staying there. They are saying, I want what he's giving. I want what she's giving. And that is where you see it. And it looks different because it's new. That wasn't around when that definition was created. But we have these new modern way AI is coming in, and we're seeing that we
Hmm.
have individuals who can create like bots of themselves that make it so that you can get mentorship based on a topic from that person. And so we're going to see this shift and change. Mentorship, as you and I are talking about right now, in 5 years, there will be some added components to mentoring that I don't even know exist yet.
Hmm. Yeah, my next question is, of course, with technology, can a large language model be a mentor?
Yeah, it can. So, there's an example of Marshall Goldsmith who created the Marshall bot where he trained it and he had I don't know, like $1 million poured into making this Marshall bot that had just his way of thinking trained into it and all of his work poured into it. And it is made for coaches who want to get mentored in coaching.
Hmm.
So that when Marshall's long gone, people will be able to go to this Marshall bot and ask questions and get mentored. So, yeah, are these as strong as personal? No, they're weaker forms of mentorship because that meaningful connection may be on the side of the mentee with the mentor. People may be listening to you and saying, wow, I feel really connected to him. They may feel really connected to the Marshall bot, but you may not know the people who are connecting with you, and that Marshall bot doesn't know the people who it is connecting with. So it is like brownie made with monk fruit sugar instead of cane sugar.
Big brownie fan you are.
I love brownies.
Yeah, who doesn't? And the difference between a mentor and, let's say, a professor or a tutor
Hmm.
is what?
Tutors are paid. How many
Mm,
tutors would go and do that for nothing?
right.
And I tell my students, I am advising you. This is part of my job. I
An
have to do
advisor.
this. So I do this and I do a good job at it because I like you. I want you to succeed. Um,
Hmm,
and if I'm doing it outside, when my
hmm,
students reach out to me after they've been in my class, and they often do, that's me mentoring them.
hmm.
So if you are doing, a lot of people think, well, I'm going to add mentoring to what I do in my job, as though other people who are advising are also advising. I'm then making an assumption that they're doing a bad job and I'm doing a much better job because I've added mentoring. No, I'm supposed to be doing that. My
Mm,
job is to help these students learn and to make decisions that might be helpful for them. So if I take that out, I'm a bad advisor. I'm a bad teacher to the
hmm,
students. Um, and what that does is when I put those two together, if I say I'm a mentor and a an advisor, they don't then seek someone else's help. They
hmm.
think they got it all from me. And that's bad. That's a bad way of thinking because we should never limit our exposure and connections and everything that we have out in the world with others.
I do a decent amount of, I work in the tech field and I do a decent amount of coaching with businesses and some facilitating. And I always try not to give advice. I just don't think I'm qualified. So if they present me with a problem, I say, well, here's something that I did that's similar to that. And this is what I learned from it. When mentoring, is it about advice giving? Is it about teaching? Is it about direction?
It's all of those, and it could be one of those. So you may say I'm not giving advice, but what you just described to me was guidance.
Guidance.
And that's so valuable. Imagine yourself on a dark path at night and you don't know where to go. Now imagine that somebody put little lights out in front so you could see.
Hmm.
That's what you're doing when you're guiding. And that is so valuable to people who haven't gone down that path that you've gone down 20 times before.
Mm. It's really generous to, what Mr. Cheswick, Bill Cheswick did, right? He said, I'm going to retire. I've got so much knowledge. I want to share it with others. So it's generous to be a mentor, but it's even more, I think, to say, I would love to be mentored. So
Mhm.
to actually say, oh, wow, there's just something I can learn directly from him or directly from her. That so it's really, really, you mentioned trust as being one of the elements, but that's seems to be the foundation, Debbie.
Oh, yes, and you're the first person to actually bring that up, how it is most people think that a mentor is being just generous.
Mm,
It's not generosity, that's getting an extra scoop of ice cream
mm,
at
mm,
the ice cream shop, you eat it and it's gone. It's generative, right? But for the mentee, do you know, like, it feels so amazing when somebody says, "Wow, that was so helpful," or "You
mm,
made a difference," or "Now I think differently. Now I
mm,
held
mm,
information differently inside of me." You now just now you live in that person. You get to feel relevant, useful, helpful, validated.
hmm,
All of those are incredibly powerful emotional things that matter to us as mentors, and the only person that can give it to us is the mentee.
mm,
So, yes, people think they're being selfish or that they are someone who's bringing in, information that they want just for themselves, like in a greedy way. That's not it. They're the holders of us. They're carrying on this very important thing that they will then carry to somebody else. And I will give you an example of that. I write about it in the book. It's called The Legacy Tree, and it was developed by a Nobel Prize winner from 2012. And his name is Bob Lefkowitz. And he said, "Wow, how did I become a Nobel Prize winner? I wonder how this happened." And what he did was he said, "I'm gonna make a tree that looks like like an ancestry tree, but it's of my mentors."
hmm,
And so he put the people above him, the people who were next to him, and the few people that he knew that he mentored. Because a lot of us don't know who we mentor. We do it without even realizing we've mentored people. So he put that in a journal article. He published it and went to a conference not long after. He gets to the conference and somebody comes up to him and he says, "Hey, Bob, I'm 6 degrees Lefkowitz." And Bob said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, 5 people have worked between you and me." And
hmm,
Bob said, "Well, what are you working on?" And he told him, and it was everything that Bob
hmm,
um, had spoken. It was like his same words, the same verbiage. And the project, he could see where he was in it and it had moved forward 6 levels away from him. So the power of the mentee is the propeller, it's the turning of the
hmm,
wheel that we would if we give it to somebody and it stays there and never leaves that person, what have we accomplished? It's the movement of that that keeps it going so that wheel doesn't have to get reinvented. That's where we still celebrate our religions, whatever one we subscribe to, the same way we did thousands of years ago.
hmm,
That's how we've had the tech revolution take off. The founding of the United States was by, a bunch of guys who had different expertise and they all mentored each other to found this country. That's lateral mentoring.
hmm.
And so mentoring is such a fluid thing that we're doing it just looking to our left and looking to our right. And we should be seeing ourselves as mentees all the time. Because if I carry your information somewhere, I have just made you live on a little bit
Hmm.
longer. And so it is a generous thing, but it's also generative.
It's generative, yeah. Your TED Talk was tremendous, Debbie.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and in it, you open up with you're an aging specialist, and people don't want to talk to you at cocktail parties, which you hate, and then you kind of return to it at the end and saying people should welcome him. What's an aging specialist?
So I entered the field of aging research in the 1990s when the only thing people were studying were things that no one wanted to have or get. So, like depression, frailty, end of life, Alzheimer's disease. And so I started out doing that and specializing in that. And then I switched to look at the things that we want to look forward to, because there's a whole emotional journey that is not well known, and I wanted to get to know that better, to know what we have to look forward to. So I specialize in everything midlife and beyond, so I understand the things that we might not want to have, but they aren't things that stop us. Like depression, you can suffer from depression and get over it. You can have all these things. We should not expect to suffer from Alzheimer's disease. We should not expect to have all sorts of negativity midlife and beyond. We should expect to be happier. That trajectory goes up and never goes down. So we should be feeling fulfilled and happy throughout our life, going up, up, up. It's like a line that goes up this way,
Hmm. Yes.
as opposed to most people think of our physicality and our emotions being matched, so that if I need reading glasses like I
Mm.
do in my mid 50s, that I must feel bad. But I tell my students all the time, you can outrun me, but I'm happier than you. And that's what we should expect. So, being an aging specialist, I look at all of that and how we can navigate our lives in a way that helps us understand what roadblocks might be ahead, but how many open doors there are for opportunity for us.
Debbie, how did you get into this? I never heard of this discipline, and even mentoring. What's the genesis there?
So I got into the field before people were really studying aging. It was kind of new. Like they had people that were studying components of it, like the disease aspects of it, like geriatric depression or,
Mm.
Alzheimer's disease. But what happened was I was like 20 and I went down to visit my grandma in Florida from New York. And she was the fun grandma who, if I went down there, I couldn't wait to visit her because
Mm.
she was like super cute and fun. She had like amazing clothes. And so I didn't have to pack anything other than shoes. And I went down to visit her. And on this occasion, she was disheveled, not cute looking, and nothing made her happy.
Mm.
And so I said to somebody at the independent living facility that she lived in, there's something wrong with grandma. And they said, we know, we're going to fix her. Don't worry. And I was like, what do you mean you're going to fix her? They said, "And when you come back, she'll be better. She's taking a med for her COPD, which was a breathing issue that isn't agreeing with her. And we're going to switch it. So she'll be better by the time you come back." So when I went back in 3 months, she was so better. She had a boyfriend named Wilbur, like
Huh.
she was back to being grandma. And I said, "I'm gonna be a grandma fixer." So I changed my major. It took me so much longer to graduate college, and, decided I'm gonna go into psychology, and I am gonna, focus on aging. So then I went to work from there in a psychiatric hospital, in Cornell, Westchester, which is New York, and looked at I was on their depression research studies. I worked in research in that area, and then I said, "Oh, I think I like this." So I went on for my PhD and found a place. It was incredibly difficult to find anybody who wanted to study aging, and so I found Fordham University had somebody who said, I will be your guide and advisor, and I will let you go do this weird thing you want to do."
Hmm.
So, I was very fortunate that they really allowed me to study and look at things that I wanted to. And then I went and started in my first job outside of school at my own research division in a very large Manhattan nursing home. And that's how I started with that. Then I pivoted to looking at the positive sides when I went to a dinner party and was so excited to tell everyone about my new book coming out on end of life. And, I had just done really groundbreaking research in depression identification. I couldn't wait to go brag about all of my big achievements.
Mm.
And I get there and everybody's like, like it was like it landed flat. And then some guy across from me said, "Oh my gosh, so what do we have to look forward to as we get older? You're just putting a band-aid on all the stuff we don't want to even think about."
Mm.
And I was like, "Ooh, ouch, that hurts." So I left there and said, I must figure out what else there is because I also want to learn for myself what we have to expect as we grow older. And
Hmm.
are we just looking forward to bad things? Because the media was only talking about negative things. But then when I went and I looked at the research and all the theories that were out there, it was full, just nobody was talking about it. So I started to really dig deeper into mentorship because mentorship is something we're built to do. I didn't know that. I was
Wow.
like, "What are you talking about?" It's within a developmental emotional life stage called generativity, where we're built by the time we hit midlife to want to give back to others.
Hmm.
So all the young researchers out there like myself, nobody was thinking about that because we were like, no, 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 we have to keep learning, learn, 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 bring into ourselves. Nobody was thinking give back. Your bandwidth is so narrow. But by the time you hit midlife, this life stage of generativity, which encompasses volunteering, mentoring, and philanthropy, is something that people just automatically start to do. I'll talk to people and they'll say, "Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I started this, or I gave back, or I went and started to do this volunteering. I felt compelled to do that." And I'll ask why, and they'll say, "I don't know."
Hmm.
And it's just because it's like walking and talking. If you said to a baby, "Why'd you start walking?" They'll be like, "I don't know. Just had to do it." So
Wow.
that really got me excited. And nobody was really writing about this in this kind of a way.
Mm.
So when I looked at mentorship, I said, I want to look at it from the mentor's perspective because that's where it starts. And so when I started to look at that, I interviewed about 45 people from like a four-star general to some grandmas and everybody in between. And people were all crying when they talked about how good mentorship made them feel,
Hmm.
literally crying. And people were mentoring in ways that didn't match with their expertise for their jobs. Like the general mentored his grandson and it was had nothing to do with the military.
Mm.
And, I was like, wow, that's so interesting. Lawyers were mentoring in ways that were making impact in people's literal physical lives. So I said, there's something here. This is one of the most powerful things ever, like to see grown men cry on Skype because this was pre-COVID, so we were doing it on Skype. Um, I was like, that's unbelievable. So once I realized that there was something there, and then Bill Cheswick said, I need to get out into schools,
Hmm.
we decided to start this. And then it's just a fascinating thing to see the power of mentorship, how you can change, one man can change, and I say man because he's the one that we sent to Tanzania. He changed an entire community, not just the kids that he went there to teach art to. So we sent this artist, Justin Thompson, to Sharati, Tanzania, a tiny little town who had not been taught Western art. And he went there and he's the guy who draws Snoopy. He's trademarked to draw Snoopy and all of that. He works for Schultz Creative Studios. He went there and he made a giant mural on the building. There was no artwork anywhere on any of the walls. And so he put a big mural. So just as you come into the school, you see this big mural. The whole community came out. Moms holding babies, men who were helping with the scaffolding, who were helping to mix the paint. The whole community came out. When he taught the kids, the teachers all gathered around. And so in the end, everybody was really excited by the art. And he went back the next year. And then from there, he went to Flatbush, Brooklyn to teach middle schoolers there. This one man has been able to see the impact that he
Hmm.
can make. And most of us don't put that together. We think, oh, I go through my day and I do what I do. But mentorship allows you to feel like you made change in the world and see how you make change in the world.
Hmm.
So most of us are all making change in the world, but we just haven't put it together to see that we actually do.
Hey, Joey Pinz here. Want to take your podcast experience to the next level? I'm excited to invite you to become a YouTube member. It's the absolute best way to support the channel and enhance your connection. Join our amazing community and unlock the incredible perks, custom loyalty badges, exclusive emojis, and priority comment replies. Your voice will always stand out. Be the first to watch new videos with early access, receive special membership shoutouts, and get exclusive behind-the-scenes photos and updates. Dive into content available only to our members, special videos, deep dives, and insider perspectives. Engage directly with me. Suggest podcast topics you want to hear, and even get personalized video shoutouts. Hit the join button right now and become part of something special. Let's build this amazing community together. I can't wait to welcome you as a new member. Join the Joey Pinz family today. What a wonderful transition to be from becoming grandma fixer to not just identifying what the problem is, but trying to come up with a solution as well, and that's mentorship. It's really remarkable. Are there rules to being a mentor? Are there do's and don'ts?
So I look at it like friendship, right? You don't get a handbook to be a friend. So
Mm,
people will say to me, I can't tell you, I just drives me crazy to read what to do when you have a toxic mentor. That is not a mentor. There's no such thing as a toxic mentor.
never heard the
If
term.
it's just not a mentor. So
Right.
when people say what to do when you have a bad mentee, that it's not a mentee. It's like saying what to do with a toxic friend. That is not a friend. If
Right.
somebody's throwing you under the bus every time, that
Huh.
you interact with them, they're not your friend. Step away, walk away. So I do not allow that into the dialogue of mentorship because in
Wow.
fact that is missing components from that recipe, that brownie recipe that I
Mm.
talked about. Because within that, do you trust a person that's toxic? No. Do you trust a person who's going to throw you under the bus? So when
Hmm.
there are rules, and if you have a meaningful connection with somebody, you don't have to say to somebody, I hope they listen to me.
Hmm.
When I call my friend and I want to vent about something good or have a joyful experience talking about something that I accomplished, I anticipate that they will listen. I don't have to assume that they have a playbook that they get out and I say, okay, listen. Okay, next I will make sure that I give good advice. Then I will not throw them under the bus. There's no playbook for this. You just have to follow those, 5 components and you're within it. And it's just like friendship in the sense that if it feels bad, we usually walk away from the bad, something that maybe we thought would be a good friendship. It turns out somebody threw us under the bus and we walk away. Um, so be aware when somebody's talking about toxic mentorship or you should learn to listen, that is somebody who's trying to fit mentorship into a coaching model.
Hmm.
Run, don't walk from that.
Hmm. It seems that another trait that we haven't really discussed, but seems to be kind of underlying is vulnerability.
That's trust, yes.
Oh, it's part of
Vulnerability is part
trust.
of that.
Yeah.
And if you can't be vulnerable around someone, they can't help you.
Right.
If I'm too shy to say to you, I don't know anything about podcasting because I worry that you're going to judge me and be like, "Oh, I had no idea she was, so, not smart or something."
Hmm.
Likewise, if you said to yourself, "I'm not going to tell her what I do and how I market this and get this going because she's going to go do that for herself and somehow I'll lose out."
Hmm.
But if you think about it, who are your friends? Those are the people that you're vulnerable with. The close friends.
Yeah.
Those are the people that you cry on the phone with, that you call when there's something that goes wrong. If there's something that goes right in your life, you can't wait to get on the phone and share it with them because they'll be happy for you. They're
Hmm.
not just going to be like, let me listen. Um, so mentorship, because it's an emotional interaction, not a transactional interaction, has that component to it.
Hmm.
So the only things that I say to people who are mentoring and mentoring with the Mentor Project is do not talk about politics.
Mm.
No one cares about your politics.
Right.
That should not be entering into your emotional relationship with somebody. Don't talk about religion and don't talk about sex. Like that's it. And that covers a lot of stuff that you
Does.
shouldn't be talking about, that
Yeah.
you could talk about with a friend.
Right.
But in mentorship, I say don't talk about that. Now, some mentors and mentee, particularly when they engage in lateral mentorship. So within the Mentor Project, we've not just seen the hierarchical mentorship where somebody is giving someone from a different generation, mentorship. We see our mentors mentoring each other,
Hmm.
and that's lateral mentoring. Now, they have started companies together, written books together, done journal articles together. Now, these individuals, sometimes they talk about those things. That's okay. They've hit a level where that's okay. They can, do that. But we do not ever do that when we're talking with, students and mentors, mentees and mentors that are generationally um, divided.
Yeah, Debbie, it didn't even occur to me that the actual mentors need to. I'm about to say coached, but they actually need to be. You shouldn't talk about these three subjects, and this whole issue of toxicity is very interesting.
Well, we don't coach them in that.
I see.
People think, "Oh, you have to have a big handbook." We have a mentor handbook and we have a mentee handbook for
Ah,
our mentors, not for themselves, but for the mentors, mentees. Because, our mentors have to get background checks. We have a
ah,
big onboarding. They're working with students who are minors in
interesting.
some cases. So we have to be very safe. And
Hmm,
that is a different layer. Now, as long as they lay off those three things, we're pretty good.
hmm,
That allows for them to be free to do what they want. If you take those three things out of there, then we're okay. I don't need to coach them on their interaction to say, "Did you know?" Okay, when someone speaks, do you know? Sit back and listen. We find that there's no problem at all with people when we leave those three big components out when we're
hmm,
working with students who are minors, especially. But within the mentors themselves, we also have a mentee handbook. Like,
hmm,
you know, show up,
hmm.
things like that. Otherwise, you're not going to be in the mentee pool. Um, but the main thing is for the mentors, you can add those things back and you can talk about, religion, politics, and sex if you would like to with your lateral mentors if you're
Hmm.
not minors, our mentors that we have coming in, because that may be something that they want to collaborate on in terms of maybe they want to do a paper on gender, or maybe they want to do start a company that has to do with one of those components. I don't know, but that's open to them. And so if you're going to look at toxicity, that comes into play when a person does not have that meaningful connection with somebody else, because bullying and being mean is not having a meaningful relationship.
Hmm.
And so done x, that's not mentorship.
And going back to vulnerability, it's also vulnerable on the mentee because they're saying, "Oh, I want to listen, I want to learn." There's some certain vulnerability there as well.
Oh, both, for both, a
Yeah.
mentee, especially if you're in the workplace, you might say, I don't want, somebody to know what my vulnerabilities are because I'm afraid I'm not going to get a raise or a promotion because they'll find out I don't know something. People are, sort of trained to go into work being, indispensable and I know
Hmm.
everything. I
Hmm.
got this. You don't have to worry with me around. As soon as you open up that vulnerability, then as a mentee, you are at risk. So that's a tricky situation for people. That's why vulnerability is the one that goes away when you have lateral mentorship.
Hmm.
When you go to somebody to your left or to your right, you are that person isn't your boss. They're not somebody who can sort of hold that over you. And I give a bunch of examples of that in the book. And one example is Charlie Camarda, who was in space. And he has a book out now too, which is really, I think it's called Mission Impossible. No, um, Mission Possible. And so, at any rate, the Columbia Space Shuttle, came back to Earth in 2003. and it disintegrated on impact to the horror of everybody looking, right, who watched it on television. And Charlie's mission went up 2 years later on the STS-114. And they get up there and they're like, "Yay, this is great." He was like, "I'm an astronaut. This is better than I ever thought it would be." And he's having a great old time. They're all, enjoying themselves. And then he gets a call from mission control and they say, "Hey, you may have the same problem that the previous shuttle had,"
Hmm.
which is only a problem when you try to come back, right? It's on Earth's um, on impact with Earth's atmosphere. So he was like, "Oh my gosh." Charlie was a single dad taking care of his daughter. And he thought, "Oh my gosh, do I have to call my daughter and tell her I'm not coming home?" It was really emotional. And you can't open the door and say, "I'm out of here," while you're in the middle of space. So he did not trust work. He didn't say, "I'm going to call work and see if they can help me to solve this problem." They just told him, we think we have the same problem we had last time. That was supposed to be fixed.
Hmm.
So there was no trust for him to seek mentorship within the hierarchy of his workplace. So what he did was he went to his little black book of contacts that he had, and he went to one of his closest engineering contacts who he trusted and who knew this craft that he was on. And he called him from space and said, "Hey, can you walk me through this? I need to solve this problem or call my daughter."
Wow.
And so his friend, who was his lateral mentor, helped him to see there was a teeny tiny tile out there that they needed to fix. Um, and he said, "You need to do a spacewalk." And he taught Charlie the stuff that he would need to know that he could pass on to make this mission complete to come home.
Wow.
And so Charlie called mission control and he said, "We have to do a spacewalk." They sent people out to do a spacewalk, that were on the craft, brought him back, and they came home safely.
Hmm.
Now, that person who saved his life was a lateral mentor. It was because that vulnerability was free between them.
Hmm.
Charlie felt okay talking to him. He did not feel okay talking to mission control. And that was what got them home safely. So we see this all the time. Lateral mentoring is intensely powerful. It's what really ignites some of the biggest impact in the world, like our founding fathers, who were like a bunch of guys with different areas of expertise. And then we had a new country. When we have any big tech thing that happens, that's lateral mentoring. There's no boss. So and that's because the vulnerability is removed.
Hmm.
People feel comfortable saying, "I don't know what to do." Like you say, "I'm curious." That's expressing vulnerability.
Yeah.
"Hey, I want you to answer these questions for me. I want to know more." That's saying, "Hey, I have a vulnerability," and you're comfortable doing that. And that's because it's not your boss you're telling that to. And that's something that when we think of mentorship, vulnerability can be easily taken away from the equation. Just don't go to somebody hierarchical. Look to your left and look to your right, and you'll find somebody who you can get as a mentor.
I think one thing you helped me realize, Debbie, is I'm a lifelong mentee. I just constantly want to, but my aren't we all also mentors? I mean, everybody's got
Yeah.
something they can share. So
Oh, yeah.
isn't everybody lateral?
Everyone is.
Yeah.
And we live within what would look like a spider web.
Hmm.
We just don't know it. It's invisible to us. But, kind of like how a spider web is, you can't see it, and then all of a sudden you hit it and you've got it all over
You're
you.
in it. Yeah.
Once you start to learn about this, you feel that. It's like the spider web hits you in the face.
Hmm.
And that's because we are mentoring and being mentored all the time. And we think that you can only get mentorship from somebody above you, but how many times have we mentored somebody above us?
Hmm.
And that could be, most people are like, "Oh, it's tech." And I get tired of that because there's more to it than that. And I don't assume that everybody who's older can't text or something. But it's things like if I'm doing an ad, um, or if I'm part of a company and I want to sell a widget, I better know that decade that I'm selling to. and get the expertise from that decade. So if I'm selling to millennials or Gen Z, I better get expertise from people in that age group. And we see that things fail oftentimes because people don't seek the expertise from individuals about the culture of that generation, of the values of that generation, of what drives that generation. And we'll see those widgets will fail in their sales because they're not looking to multiple generations and
Hmm.
getting expertise. That's mentorship. That is providing information. And because it's abstract, people often don't put that together with it. But that's there around us all the time that we are doing without even thinking about it.
Hmm. I walked in as a mentee and came out as a mentor or something, or the other way around. But you're right. It is fascinating to think that. I mean, maybe I'm eternally curious. I'm an eternal mentee. One of the main reasons why I have this podcast, I want to learn. I want to understand from people.
So look at yourself here. You are saying, "Oh, I want this so I can get information. I'm a mentee." As you're giving it out, you're a mentor.
Hmm.
Everyone who is, listening to your podcast and who says, "Wow, I got information," they are your mentee.
Hmm.
So you right here are in a dual role of mentor and mentee. And people often think you can't hold that, two things at the same time. But here you are, you're right now taking in information and now it's going out to others.
Hmm.
And that's what we're doing all the time. You're interacting with others continuously and constantly in that way.
Debbie, has there been anything in the last month or so that you changed your mind on?
Mm, probably a bunch of things. And I just can't think of it. Let me think. Let's see. I changed my mind on the Mets and the Yankees
Uh oh.
when they had all of their, I don't know. I've been going back and forth with that. So yeah, look, my mind changes on things all the time,
Hmm.
and that's not a bad thing, right? And that's kind of what's the beauty about as we get older, we can change our mind. Well, I might learn something new and say, "Oh, changed my mind."
Hmm.
Um, and that happens to me all the time. I can't even give that many. There's just too many examples, I think, that would be a mind changer for me that are minor but could make a big difference.
I like to think that I could change my mind on anything given new evidence.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're in a society and we see these kinds of extremes where people dig in but yeah, staying open-minded and kind of steel manning things is really healthy. So I started my business, from the New York area. I'm from my parents met in Queens and Flushing, so that's Mets.
Ah,
Yeah, that's Met.
yep.
Yeah. Um, as soon as they had me, they got out. Instead of going to Long Island or Jersey, they went to Connecticut because that's where relatives were. But started my business in the 90s and I was working, a lot, 16 hours a day, putting my health in the back seat, Debbie. And next thing I know, in front of the doctor, and she tells me I'm at 340 pounds. And she says to me, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. My daughter was just born.
Wow.
Scared the life out of me. Spent the next 6, 7 months, lost 130 pounds. And you can't look at it as a finishing line. These are lifelong changes you have to make. So when I tell people this, that they're quick to say what's your secret, what you do, and there's no secret. Discipline is how I did. I got focus, I got motivation. How does discipline play a role in your life?
So I have to have discipline in my life. And if, like right here, you can see I have this book, I write down everything I have to do every day,
Hmm.
and it makes me accountable. So discipline for me is accountability.
Hmm.
I have to be accountable to myself that I'm going to do all the things that I need to do. Um, to get through, because that also means that I'm accountable in my relationships. And so discipline for me equates to, me being accountable. I could let things slide very easily
Hmm.
if I'm not disciplined. And by slide, meaning forget to maybe connect with somebody on something I had to do, or forget to do something that I needed to do. And what does that make the person that I was supposed to do that for connect with feel like? So the accountability component to me makes me realize that I'm not just a single person, running around not affecting others with my actions. That is it also makes me feel better. Like, when I feel like, gee, I'm not alone. This little thing that tells me all the things I have to do makes me feel like I'm part of the world.
Mm. It's hard to hold yourself sometimes accountable.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Because, when you see things, first of all, if I hold myself accountable with this thing, which I've had for decades,
Plenty.
um, and that's probably because I probably have like ADHD and need to do that. But like, I don't know if I do, I'd be undiagnosed, but it wouldn't be a shocker.
Mm.
But the main thing with it is that if I am not accountable to myself, which is what this is, I'm not accountable to anybody else.
Hmm.
And there's nothing worse than feeling like you went through a day and you weren't accountable to yourself. And it makes you feel like a screw up, or it makes you feel like, just it doesn't make you feel good.
Hmm.
But when you do it, boy, that is a good feeling. When I feel like I have all these things checked off, ooh, that feels good.
Hmm.
And that's a personal win for me. So whether that is that I did my steps, which I do track every day, if I don't make the steps, I feel like, ooh, I better make it up some other way, some other time. But it allows me to sort of feel like my whole life comes together in a lot of different ways.
Can a mentor hold somebody accountable?
Yeah, they should.
Hmm.
Yeah, and accountability is a big thing for youth. One of the biggest things is that you show up,
Hmm.
right? And this is a big one. And I have to talk to mentors occasionally about this because they'll say, "Oh, my mentee doesn't make appointments unless they need something." And I'm like, "Well, don't take that personally, but talk about it."
Hmm.
You can talk about it with them and say, "Hey, if you," but realize when they do come back, that's because they do want your expertise. So,
Hmm.
accountability is just having, and a person when they're young, they don't learn that yet. They're feeling like I'm right here in this little silo, and they have to learn that the world out there is connected to them
Hmm.
and that their impact is a big one, that people actually are excited to talk to them. They often think, "Oh, it's this person is
Hmm.
disconnected from me. I don't reach out to them, they're going to be fine. Then they've got an extra hour or whatever." They feel like they're a burden in some way. So talking about that is the biggest thing is show up. The biggest thing is tell people how you feel, like, "Thank you, I appreciated meeting today. And I'd like to meet again. I'll let you know when my schedule is free." Easy,
Hmm.
right? You can do that all in one email right afterwards, or one communication. And that little bit of accountability makes both parties feel pretty good.
Hmm. I didn't realize you can have like a regular cadence with a mentor. We'll meet every Friday at 4 or something like that.
Some do, some don't.
I see.
Um, And that depends on the mentor and the mentee. So
Hmm.
in my case, I meet with mentees, and it's not every week, but at some points it was.
Hmm.
There was somebody who really was, needing mentorship pretty regularly. And so we met once a week. And then he didn't, now I'll probably meet with him in a month or two when he needs something again, but that's how it often will work. So it just depends on what the needs of usually the mentee are, or if the mentor says, "Hey, I know this will really help you. Let's really dig in and meet." But some of the mentors and mentees who have met to do some really big things like patenting and things like that, they'll meet for hours at a time,
Wow.
week after week after week.
Want to show your love for discipline, inspiration, and the Joey Pinz podcast? Now's your chance. Introducing the brand new Joey Pinz merch store, where style meets discipline. Choose from premium apparel, cozy hoodies, stylish hats, durable bags, and your new favorite coffee mug, all featuring the iconic Joey Pinz logo. Perfect for podcast fans, discipline enthusiasts, or as unique gifts for friends and family. Every purchase supports the Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, helping us continue to inspire greatness and promote positive change. Visit joeypins.com/store today and wear your discipline proudly. Joey Pinz merch. Wear it, share it, and live it. But in that example, patent generally means to profit, and financial gain, but the mentor's never paid.
No,
So do
no.
they get a piece of the final product? Is it there's no
That's up to them later
I
with
see.
the mentor and the mentee. So the mentor project does not take anybody's intellectual property. We allow whatever magic happens to happen.
I see.
And the mentors, if they want to collaborate on an article or a book, or if they want to do whatever they want to do with a mentee, they can. They would have to enter into something legal. And I do believe that some of our mentors have moved from projects with the mentor project to projects on their own outside of the mentor project
Hmm.
with their former mentees. And I look at that as a good thing.
I get to talk to a decent amount of therapists, Debbie, on the podcast, and I also talk to coaches. And when I started the conversation, the difference between a coach and a mentor, I have found that the difference between a therapist and a coach is that a therapist looks back and a coach looks forward. I wonder where mentorship falls there in that spectrum.
So I look at therapy and coaching as therapy is emotional and coaching is more of a transaction.
Hmm.
Mentorship is emotional, it is not a transaction. The difference is that if you're in therapy, it's focused on one individual.
Hmm.
Right? So the therapist isn't asking you for anything about their life, and you may not even know much about your therapist's life. It's a one-way street.
Hmm.
Mentorship is a two-way street, and it's not going into the personal um, issues of somebody. So that's the difference.
Hmm.
But a lot of people will feel like mentoring and therapy are the same because there's an emotional component there. But the job of the mentor is not to be the therapist, and the job of the mentee is not to be the
Hmm.
therapist.
Hmm.
Um, we are, so I will say to mentors also, if you're seeing that a person is struggling with something, refer them to, tell them to seek therapy. And also, if the person could use coaching, refer them to get a coach as
Hmm.
well. We
Hmm.
should not be limiting ourselves to saying there's a one-stop shop for any of these things.
What motivates you, Deborah?
Curiosity,
Hmm.
feeling like I can make impact, like my life is an opportunity to make the world a better place in some way through relationships with others. And connections motivate me, meaning that I get up every day and I'm excited to talk to people. And I'm not really an extrovert, but I like that meaningful connection that I get with people. That motivates me.
Impact, connection. So, given those motivations, how do you measure success?
Success for me is looking at, have I done anything that's made my footprint a little bit bigger in the world?
Hmm.
Has anything succeeded? That can be how many am I still writing for psychology today? Are my articles, making impact? Do people respond and say this mattered to me? The book that I wrote, is that impact? Are people saying I read that and it changed my viewpoint or made me feel like am I am doing things that I didn't know I was doing? Those sort of things are the way that I measure impact. With regard to the mentor project, how many people are making a difference in the world? I get to feel like I'm part of that. So when we gave out $3 million of mentorship hours for free in 2024, I
Wow.
felt like that was impact and that I got to be a part of that. Every single person in the mentor project gets to feel that. That's where I get mine, is that when I can see that something happened afterwards, it makes me feel good.
It certainly should because it's very powerful, and I love what you're doing. I love it's just so it's so great when people, not only help themselves, but they try to help others as well. It's absolutely wonderful. I thank you for your time today. So very great. Anybody listening or watching, how can they get in touch with you? How can they go to the Mentor Project?
Oh, it's easy. Go to mentorproject.org. And if you are a student, you can get mentored for free. Just click the Become a Mentee button on the website and off you go. And if you would like to reach me, you can check out my Psychology Today blog. You can find me. My book is in Amazon in all formats you like to read or listen to books. Um, and you can find me at my website, deborahheiser.com.
The website's Deborah Heiser,
Yeah.
HEISER.com. You're on YouTube as well. Of course, you're on LinkedIn, and of course, mentorproject.org. I thank you so much for your time. Next time I'm up there in the great tri-state, perhaps we'll get a cup of tea.
I'd love that.
Thank you so much. You be well.
You too.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.